but usually they plaque it. Because these undershirts dyed in bone no polyester or elasticity within the fiber, even when knitted, you might argue, well, knitted, even if 100% cotton or linen or whatever, being knitted, the part of being knitted is that it is kind of elasticated, yes, but not as much as when see, that thing is fairly elasticated. In fact, the buttons there, although they are generally functionable, I only unbutton it to wash it, since it washes better, more probably, but I never need to unbutton it when taking it off, see? Because it is so elasticated throughout. Whereas with these, which are not even knitted, these are completely unelasticated, like a dress shirt, really. They have a Victorian looking, exactly like in the Victorian days, placket, as in a proper, not a simply decorative kind of symbolic placket like here, but see how, although this has more buttons than that, that one only has two. This is much bigger and thicker, yeah? This is actually, I cannot put it over my head or take it off without unbuttoning at least one button. So there's the first thing. You might argue the length here is kind of alright. It used to be kind of longer, but not necessarily. The length is alright. The fabric, it does not really shed, it contains polyester. You feel it as well, it's just kind of suffocating a little bit. Not too much, I must admit, but still. And you know, like all. I also got these in blend at the same time. These are 100% cotton, but again, very modern. They always have that small placket. I think it is a tad bigger there. And at least the buttons left all right, since it is a men's thing. But still, you get the point. These ones, now we come to the thing. Obviously, is it what the British upper class would wear? Especially if if with someone, probably not, they would have had something better fitting. They might have had it made to measure. It's not actually bespoke made, which again would be entirely hand-sewn and made to measure. But in terms of period accuracy, even for England, this is completely period accurate. Even for civilians, this is not super thick. You know, they had thick stuff like, and you know, large stuff that could fit in many sizes. You know, I think they only come in 4 sizes. And they come extra large also. This is, and the fabric, now we come to the fabric, they say this is a historical fabric. Probably existed since how long, in the Middle Ages or whatever. I think it was Biarka or Balka. Balka, I think, B-A-R-K-A. Just type Soviet Army undershirt on Etsy. It was on Etsy, I read about Balka. But they have them on eBay. They have more of them on Etsy though. Now, again, as with the gangs, as I explained a billion times within these videos, is the fabric truly 100% as it would have been made back in 1900? I'm far from a fabric expert, a cloth expert. I'm a clothing expert, not a cloth expert. Most of what I have to tell about the clothing, the cloth has been learned within the last 5 years max. Whereas I was into clothing way before that, since I was 4. So again, we're dealing here, if we were dealing with like a frock kit or something, I would tell you with more confidence this, I'm all certain, is not 100% the cloth itself made like it would have been made and dyed and treated and so on and so forth back in the 1890s. But since this is simply an uncolored bleach, they bleach it, this is not the natural color of the cotton, whatever it is. We might argue this is not completely bleached, especially I think the southern one is a bit darker. This shirt is super white, super bleached, because I wash it with varnish, there's a ton of difference. But they still use bleaching agents to take out the natural color of both cotton and make it that. So at least there is nothing in regards to the coloration of it that one could point out and say, like with this shirt, oh, they're not used to dye with these chemical formulas, or at least with that dosage. No, it's simply bleach it. But the cloth in itself, the way it was, first of all, the way they grew the crop, which is a cotton plant, obviously with the harvest, but who cares about the harvest? But perhaps to some degree the harvesting does matter, and especially the way they then spinned the thread, and hence after, even more importantly, loomed it. Is it 100% like it used to, also in Russian, because this is more of a Russian cloth, in the 1890s, they make it understand that it would be the same even then as prior to the 1890s. They say the undergarment has not changed style, whether the top or the bottom, that I do not have, I do not own the bottoms, since the late 19th century, but they then say that this cloth is local and original and traditional to Russia, which implies that it is probably older than the 1890s. So again, is it 100% accurate? Since these two undershirts date from the 1980s, and knowing how old school Russia was, especially back then during the Soviet Union, it is still very likely that actually the cloth, from the growing of the crop itself, was done very old school, to the spinning of the thread of the cloth into a thread, to then the looming of that thread into an actual cloth, and then from there that is it, and then to make the undershirt out of it. It may be that it is actually 100% 1890s, but I have no. This is simply from the context of what I know about Russia, the little I know, and all Russia and all these the Soviet places, for I'm not certain they were all, the cloth was all entirely made in Russia specifically. But from knowing how old school, kind of how they are old school compared to other countries, they're always kind of behind compared to the other, to the Western places, so the Western Europe, including Southern Europe, because Italy is actually in Eastern Europe, Eastern Southern Europe, but Italy is kind of following the same sort of path as Western Europe in terms of keeping up with the fashions and the modern stuff, and also the US, Australia and New Zealand. And it is very likely that actually the cloth was made like 100%, and not even harvested with a modern 1980s, sort of lorry truck, thing that harvests instead of doing it by hand. It is possible that in the 80s and even until today, there's old grannies, old Russian grannies that do it. I do not know that, and I'm not a cloth expert, so I cannot tell from. Even you can give me a microscope, and I would observe it for 2 hours straight. I would still not be able to tell whether that cloth is accurate or not, because I know next to nothing, but very little, at least compared to my clothing knowledge as regards cloth. Now, what I would say is the buttons themselves, which are plastic. Now, plastic existed since the late 18th, even some might argue since the mid 18th century, and now the accuracy is also 1890s, they had plastic, but is that plastic accurate? Is even, I may argue, the button itself accurate as per the 1880s with the British or Russian law, etc.? That I have more doubts about. Knowing that the Soviet Union, especially back in the 80s, had very little money. You might argue, yes, but they did put the money into making probably super accurate cloth. Well, yes, that actually costed them less money within the context. Had it costed them less money within the context to make an inaccurate cloth that was kind of accurate, they would have taken that option. But I think it was actually less, because of their lack of modern modernity, that the cloth is likely, at least by 90% of chances, 100% like it had always been made since the Renaissance or wherever it was that they had begun and making that specific cloth, that barker cloth. Again, there's I guess some version of the barker, or did they use two different terms? I cannot remember because that was months ago. And then there's a more wintry barker version. So, had it costed them less, they would have taken that option. But because it costed them, actually back in the 80s, it probably would have costed them more to make it less accurate. In other words, more contemporary to what we see in our Western world view as contemporary. Back then it was still contemporary and thus cheaper to use what we see in our own Western view.